So tomorrow's broadcast, which is Friday, is sponsored by Avigdor and Sarah Hyman, Little Nishmis, their great aunt Ariella Bas Meir, whose yahrzeit is Chavtes Tammuz, which is tomorrow, to Nishmas Tzur Chaim, Marshall Gottlieb. And Hashem will mention that again tomorrow. I believe that tomorrow is also the yahrzeit of Rashi. I believe that's tomorrow. Let me just check the date. I'm not sure that tomorrow is Rashi's yahrzeit, which is Chavtes. Let's see, Chavtes. Today is Chavches. It's Rabbi Yosef's yahrzeit today. Today's Rabbi Yosef's yahrzeit. Tomorrow is the yahrzeit of Rashi. Tomorrow is Rabbi Yochanan Sabler and Rashi. Today it's Rabbi Yosef's yahrzeit, the Pesach of the Friedrich Gedor. So his neshama should have at least should be a male church of all of Klal Yisrael. I remember that when I was in Israel once, Shimon Shomrun schlepped me to a blotshir that Rabbi Yosef used to give. And it was very entertaining because I didn't realize that Rabbi Yosef had a very good sense of humor. So we were learning, I think learning Maseches Shabbos, the story about when David HaMelech died. And he said over that the Gemara says that when David found out that the day of his Petira would be Shabbos, so he didn't stop learning for a second so that the Yetzer Hara, that Satan couldn't get him. And Rabbi Yosef explained, of course, it doesn't mean that he didn't daven and he didn't eat the Suda of Shabbos and he didn't do all other mitzvahs. It meant in every spare moment that he had, he learned Torah so that there should be no moment where the Satan can get him. So somebody asked him, I don't understand. David HaMelech learned Torah Shaloi L'Shma to save him? To save himself? So without skipping a beat, Rabbi Yosef says, no, what's wrong? So I have to know from that. Good morning, Betsy. The other thing I wanted to mention was yesterday we learned a story which was a little bit of an unusual story. And it was a story about 3 Rabbanim, amongst them Rav, and I think one of them was there's 3 Rabbanim who knew that somebody owed them an apology. So they went out of their way to be in front of those people, to give those people an opportunity to apologize. Let's see where that was. That was on Pei Zayin Amud Al. So we just learned it yesterday, and the story was with Reb Zera was one of the stories, but it was Rav who went, and Rav Huna told him, "Don't go to that butcher because you're going to kill him." So the shaila is, why would Reb Zera say it was going to kill him? Like how did he know what was going to happen? And what's pshat that he died because of it? Because he didn't ask him kehilla. That's the reason why he should die. So there's a very famous shaila. The Rambam says that during the Aseret Shemei Tshuva, for those who are baiting him, mechza chayiv, mechza potter, they're half mitzvahs, half averis. What should they do? Dr. Rambam, they should do tshuva. Why don't you just do one more mitzvah? If you're 50-50, why do you have to do tshuva? Do one more mitzvah. You don't tip the scale. Plus, you have to do tshuva. So one shot that they say is we're talking about last year. You already passed Rosh Hashanah. So a mitzvah that you do this year won't weigh down the scale from last year. But tshuva will retroactively remove your aveira, and only that can have an impact on last year. But Rabbi Itzala says, shot in the Rambam, that when Hashem is mamti himself to us, like in Elul and Tishrei, it says, Dirshu Hashem b'himatzai, karu b'yosei karoi, when Hashem goes out on a limb and he comes to us, and then we slap him down, and we don't do tshuva, that's the worst aveira of them all. So if you don't do tshuva in such a time, that will cause your aveiros to be so overloaded, it'll wipe you out. And that's why they went out of their way to make themselves available for people to do tshuva, and that's also why the fact that the butcher didn't take advantage of that opportunity led to a fatal outcome. I thought that was a nice talk. So I already announced that tomorrow's shir is broadcast, Le'il Nishmas, your great aunt. I already announced that, even though it's tomorrow, but we're leading up to it. We're leading up to it. Okay. Very confusing. You can't see it tomorrow. We should have a screen in both directions. Okay, so let's see the Halakha Gemara. I believe that we are about a third from the bottom of Daf Pei Zayin Amud Beis, which is, if I'm counting up from the skinny lines, it's 6 lines up. It's non hasam. The shloisha prokim b'shana kaihanim noishin eskapeyim. There were 3 times in the year where kaihanim would duchen arba pa'amim b'yoyim, 4 times in the day. And when would be the 4 times? The shachris, the musaf, the mincha, u'v'ne'ilah. So those are the 4 opportunities to duchen. Which 3 periods during the year does this occur? The elu and shloisha prokim, the tiniest. And Rashi says when they made those special tiniest chaloims, the tiniest for water. When Hashem withheld rain, so they used to make tiniest to get rain so that Yidden would have parnasa. So during those days, they davened the Ilah. So there was 4 times during those times they davened the Ilah. So there are opportunities to duchen. However, during those days there was no musaf. So we're going to be missing one, and Rashi will address that. And then there was, but my mothers was every week, different people came to watch their karbanos. The rule is when you bring a carbon, you have to sort of stand there watching to make sure everything's done okay. And every single day, all of Klal Yisrael brought the karbanos tzibur. So there were always representatives of Klal Yisrael standing there watching. And during those times, they would be like in a fast situation. And Monday through Thursday, those 4 days, that was called to my mother's, and then they did all these tefillos as well. And Yom Kippur. Now Rashi addresses on tiniest, on Yom Kippur you have musaf, you have ne'ilah, but on a regular tiniest, we do not daven musaf. So where are the 4 tefillos? So Rashi says, Uvim Amados, Arba Yomim, B'chol Shabbos, 4 days every single week. Sha'anche Mishmor Yisrael Meskansin Bahrain, where the Jews get together in their cities, Umesanin, and they fast, the current b'maisa bereshis, and they lay in the parish of maisa bereshis, kedamim b'saras tainis. We'll get up to there. We're going to learn tainis soon. We'll see exactly how that went down. V'hasav makshinon, and there the Gemara asks the kasha. The tiny is umamodos mi isbu musaf. We don't daven musaf on a fast day. So where's the 4 duchanins? Umashanin and hachikamar. This is what the Brisa means to say. Kaihanim noisnes kapayim. Doesn't mean to say it's actually 4 times. It just means every single time they daven Shemona Esrei, there's also duchening to accompany that, even by mincha. Because normally you cannot duchen by mincha. Why? Tiny is same. These 3 periods of time are tiny. It's been shechris b'mincha. Normally mincha time we don't duchen because we're afraid after people's main meals they could have drank too much, and you're not allowed to duchen after you've drank. But on the tiniest, there's no such concern, and therefore they would duchen even by mincha. The other days of the year, you wouldn't be allowed to duchen by mincha. The yesh man, and there's some of these days, such as Yom Kippur, arba ba'amim b'yoyim. So the count of 4 duchenings really only applies to Yom Kippur. So let's see what the Gemara says over here. So there were 3 times a year, or 3 periods a year, where there would be a lot of duchening happening. Rav says, Shaloisa Yiserta. What is, I skipped a line. My Ne'ilah Sharim. What is this thing called Ne'ilah Sharim? Rav Amar Shaloisa Yiserta. It's an actual extra Shemona Esrei, which is how we pierce it, right? Ne'ilah is a Shemona Esrei. Shmuel Amar, it's not a Shemona Esrei. You just say Ma'anu Machayenu. And this is referring to the last capital that we say in the Ne'ilah. I think it starts with Ata Noisin Yad Lapoishim. You just say that capital. So you don't say the whole Shemona Esrei. You just say that last thing that we add in. It starts with Ata Noisin Yad Lapoishim. And in there we say Ma'anu Machayenu. That's the shtickle. That consists of the entire Ne'ilah. No need to say a whole Shemona Esrei. We're going to prove Shmuel wrong. And in fact, Ne'ilah is a full Shemona Esrei. Or Yom Kippurim, the evening of Yom Kippurim, which we would refer to as Kol Nidre night. Mispal Sheva. There are 7 brachas in the Shemona Esrei, the standard 3 first brachas, the standard 3 last brachas, and then the insert in the center, which is the brach of Yom Kippur, u'misvada, and we say vidui with the Shemona Esrei. The shachris, the same thing, mispal sheva u'misvada. So we say the same nusach bracha, and then afterwards, after the Shemona Esrei, we say vidui. The Musaf once again mispal shiva u'misvada. The Mincha again mispal sheva u'misvada, and the Ne'ilah mispal sheva u'misvada. So this is pretty obvious. Paskin like Rav, not like Shmuel, because clearly Ne'ilah is a Shemona Esrei. Vitanya, there's another brayso that proves the same thing. Yom Kippurim im chashecha. Yom Kippurim in the evening. Once again, Kol Nidre evening. Mispal sheva u'misvada. V'choysim b'vidui, and you finish the Shemona Esrei with vidui divrei Meir. V'chamroim mispal sheva. You say a Shemona Esrei of 7 brachas. And if you want, you could also say vidui. But once again, it says that they're all tefillas. Zok the Gemara, tiyufta the Shmuel tiyufta. Shmuel is Ubgashmius. Ne'ilah is a full Shemona Esrei. It's not just the Atanosh and Yad L'Posh. Ula Barav, Nachas Kamei de Rav. Ula Barav came in front of Rav, meaning he got a job davening for the Amud in front of Rav. And Pesach, how did Ula lead its tefillah? Pesach ba'ata b'chatonu b'sayim b'ma'onu ma'chayenu, which means he said the Shemona Esrei. Ata b'chatonu means he did the Shemona Esrei. V'shavchei Rav, v'shavchei, period. And Rava was quite pleased with Ula by Rav's davening. Avuna brother of Nasan Amar, the Yochid Omer Achar Tfilas. The Yochid says vidui, not during the tefillah. The Yochid says Atanosh Yad L'Poshim, not during the tefillah. We say it after, which is how we do it. Amar Rav, Tfilas Ne'ilah Poiteres Eshal Arvis. If you daven Ne'ilah, you don't have to daven Ma'ariv. The Ne'ilah tefillah will pater the Ma'ariv tefillah. So instead of having the rocket powered Ma'ariv that we normally have after Yom Kippur, you just go home. Can you imagine? Correct the Gemara. Umi Amar Rav Hachi. Did Rav actually say that? The Amar Rav Halacha Kedivrei Omer Tfilas Arvis Rishus. Rav Paskins that Tfilas Arvis is Rishus. So you can't say Ne'ilah paters it up. You don't have to do it in the first place. So what do you mean Ne'ilah paters? If you have a chiyuv, you can say Ne'ilah takes care of that chiyuv. If you don't even have a chiyuv, you can't even express it that way, that it paters up the chiyuv. And of course, nowadays, we have to daven Ma'ariv. It's not optional, because even though when it was set up as optional, the Klal Yisrael has already accepted it upon ourselves as a chiyuv. So we can't say that Ma'ariv is optional. There's a famous story with a woman who was sitting Shiva for her husband. And she never has a chance to see how minyanim work. But during Shiva, she's there for all 3 minyanim. So she sees how minyanim work. And she says, wow, it's amazing. I never knew that Shachris takes a full hour and that Ma'ariv only takes 10 minutes. Rav is saying, even if you hold that Ma'ariv is a chayiv, nevertheless, Ne'ilah would be able to pater. Frank the Gemara Meisvah, we have a problem with that. And we're going to show you that Ne'ilah, Rashi speaks out, Ne'ilah does not pater Ma'ariv, because we're going to see that you have to daven Ne'ilah and you have to daven Ma'ariv. Meisvah, or Yom Kippurim, Mispal Sheva U'misvada, Shachris Sheva U'misvada, Musaf Sheva U'misvada, the Ne'ilah Mispal Sheva U'misvada, and Arvis Mispal Sheva Me'ein Shemona Esrei. So on Ma'ariv, you have to daven Shemona Esrei of Ma'ariv. Now Rashi says that the Ma'ariv that you could daven could be a slightly abridged Ma'ariv. So it has the first 3 brachas, it has the last 3 brachas, and all of the brachas in the middle, out of the Shemona Esrei, out of the remaining 12 brachas or 13 brachas with the V'la Malshinim, you say the Tfilas Havinenu, which is one long tefillah that incorporates them all. But you do have to daven. So this is a direct stira to the halacha that we quoted from Rav, that Ne'ilah paters Ma'ariv. He holds you cannot say the abridged tefillah of Havinenu, you have to say the full Shemona Esrei. So I think our minhag is to do a blend. We say the full Shemona Esrei in the time that it would normally take to say Havinenu. I think we're Yosy both cheapest. Why? We have to stick in the Atachay Antonu. Havinenu doesn't have that option. So in order to be able to say Atachay Antonu, we say the Shemona Esrei. But I'll call upon you have a clear raya from here that Ne'ilah does not pater Ma'ariv. In fact, it's a machlokes Tanoim. Rashi says, "I pater Ne'ilah eshal arvis oiloi," and we're going to see what it depends on. The Tanya, kol chayavet tfilos. Now this we don't do nowadays, but there was a time where this was done. Kol chayav tefillos. Anybody who has to toivel today, toivlin kedarkin b'yom kippurim. They could even go to the mikvah on Yom Kippur. For instance, Anita, who time for her to go to the mikvah, she's allowed to go on Yom Kippur. Or a woman who gave birth and now it's the end of her Tuma, she's allowed to go to the mikvah. And then he may tire as well. Toivlos kedarkin b'leila Yom Kippurim. Yom Kippur by night. Balkari. And Rashi says that Balkari is also b'divrei Torah because of the Konas Ezra. But once again, Toivel b'halach ad mincha. If he sees Keri any time during the day, he has to go to the mikveh up until mincha time. Why only up until mincha time? Because after mincha, there's no reason for him to go to the mikveh anymore. And Rashi tells us in Irloi Keri. So I'm on the first skinny line of Rashi. In Irloi Keri, Kaidem Lachain. If he saw Keri and he became tummy before mincha, then Toivel kadesh yuchal espal tfilas mincha. So he'll be allowed to daven mincha. I will raw Keri min mincha l'mayla. If he saw Keri after mincha, ain't mutter litpa. You don't have to toivel anymore. You could wait until night time to toivel. This severe hulu rabbanan. The rabbanan here hold that tfilas neila b'layla. They held that the time to daven neila is at night when Yom Kippur, when the inuyim are over already, and therefore no need to toivel on Yom Kippur. Wait till the night time, then you'll toivel, and then you'll daven neila. So you see clearly that the time to daven neila is nighttime at Yom Kippur. So therefore, according to him, we can argue that Paiteris Eshalayv is Kedarab. Since neila is daven at night, post Yom Kippur, it's logical to say that by the same token, it will also pater your chiyuv to daven Meir. And the people, the Brisa that says that neila does not pater Meir, and in fact, you have to daven neila and you have to daven Meir, Rabbi Yosy would follow the sheet of Rabbi Yosy that we're about to read. The Amar Kala Yoy Mutter Litvo, you're even allowed to toivel after mincha because you would have to daven neila during the day. So therefore, you have to toivel in order to be able to daven neila. Now, even if one became tamei after mincha, toivel b'yoyim, he could still toivel on the day of Yom Kippur, kedei lispal tfilas neila, so that he should be able to daven tfilas neila. Alma, you see that kasaver tfilas neila ain't zamana b'layla. You see, according to Rabbi Yosy, the time to daven tfilas by day. Now, if the time to daven tfilas by day, it surely cannot pater up the chiyuv to daven Meir, which is by night. Well, the day ain't a pateres as harvest. So this brisa is the brisa that the Gemara is using to illustrate a machlokes of when the right time to daven neila is.
Aliya had it said according to Yosy that you're not allowed to daven, that Balkari is not allowed to toivel after Aliya.
Oh, okay. Enechanami. We're really affecting Gemara. Hazov. The Gemara is going to get to there. So it's such a beautiful taina that Gemara is actually going to say that taina soon. Not exactly the way you presented it, but the Gemara is going to touch on what if you daven neila already, according to Rabbi Yosy. Right. So it's a very beautiful taina that you're saying. Ramini, affecting Gemara. Hazov, va'azova, va'mitzoyra, va'mitzoyras. These are all people who require tefillah. Uboy al nida, v'tamei meis, toivlin kedarkin b'yom kippur. They can go to the mikvah Yom Kippur. Nida v'yoledes. They would normally toivel the day before, the night before. And Balkari, toivel v'hoylech kol yom kuloi. At any time during the day, if there's a need. Now you're going to see, wow, how could that happen? It should become a Balkari on Yom Kippur. We're going to soon see that could be a good thing, not a bad thing. So we have a little bit of a problem here, because this brisa directly contradicts what we just said. This brisa brings down the Rabbanan as saying that you could toivel all day, which was the opinion of Rabbi Yosy just a minute ago. And this brisa also says that Rabbi Yosy holds after mincha you can no longer toivel. Once again, that's a direct steer to what Rabbi Yosy said a moment ago, that you can toivel all day, even after mincha. Dr. Gemara, and this is Chaim Tzvi's teretz, loy kasha, had the tali tilas neila, had the loy tali tilas neila, had the loy tali. Rabbi Yosy in this brisa, who said mina mincha lo mile, you can't toivel, means if he done with neila already. So really, Chaim Tzvi asked, I should say, so let it take me the neila ulamayla. Mina mincha ulamayla means from the time of mincha, from the afternoon and later. But it's speaking in a case where he done with neila already. Where he done with neila already, even Rabbi Yosy would agree that you cannot toivel anymore because there is no more tefillah required on Yom Kippur. But Frank Gemara Edith Sully, if the second brisa is discussing a case where the person davened neila already, my tamayu de rabbanan. Why would the Rabbanan hold on Yom Kippur after you already daven Neila. You don't have any more tefillas to do. Why in the world would the Rabbanon allow you to toivel on Yom Kippur? So tomorrow. Could be, yeah, could be at this point. Because if you daven Neila by day, it cannot cover from Meyer. And that's a good point. So tomorrow, Kasavi Rabbanon, tefillah b'zman mitzvah. Now there's a whole new issue. And Rashi tells us that the Rabbanon of this last brisa that we just quoted will not be consistent with the Rabbanon in the first brisa. So we actually have three different shitas. We have a Yosy, Rabbanon A, and Rabbanon B. And Rabbanon B have a new shita called tefillah b'zman mitzvah. If you're ready to toivel now, for instance, Anita's finished her 7 days, she's ready to toivel now. Abakar is ready to toivel now. You don't have the option to say, okay, you know what, I'll be toivel tomorrow. There's a mitzvah to be toivel the moment that you're able to be toivel. And therefore, forget the fact that there's Neila. You don't have to daven Neila, you've already daven Neila. Nevertheless, the Rabbanan hold you should still toivel on Yom Kippur right away, because you're supposed to toivel the very first opportunity you have to toivel. Mechlal, Rabbi Yosy Sover, lav mitzvah. Now, in the second brisa, there's a machlokes. Rabbanan holds you toivel until the end of the day. On Yom Kippur, you can toivel, even though you don't have to daven anymore, because tefillah b'zman mitzvah. Rabbi Yosy holds, you can't toivel. Once you daven Aliya, you can't toivel. So if that's the case, he holds you don't have to toivel at the right time. So that means we're declaring that our understanding of Rabbi Yosy in this brisa is that Rabbi Yosy holds you don't need a tefillah b'zman, you can wait for the next day. But I'm going to prove to you that Rabbi Yosy holds you do have to toivel. You do have to toivel b'zmano. What Tanya we learned, Haresha Yeshem Kosav al Basari. What happens if someone has the Shem Hashem written on his hand, but it's not a tattoo? It's something that will wash right off. So Haresha Lo Yirchatz, he's not allowed to wash, because he's going to wash off the Shem Hashem, and he's going to be rubbing out. He's going to be being moichet the Shem Hashem, which is not allowed. So Lo Yirchatz, Lo Yosuch, Lo Yamid b'Makam HaTenoifos. He should not only wash, he has to make sure never to get dirty, because if he gets dirty, then he'll be forced to wash. You have to avoid washing it. Does that mean,
Yosy, that he can't go to the bathroom? Is that Makam HaTenoifos?
I'm not sure. Anything that would mandate that he washes his hands.
Or he has to keep that hand outside when he uses the.
It doesn't say it was on his hand. It says it was al basari. It could have been on his chest.
Uh-huh.
Right? It could have been on his chest. If it was on his hand, it would probably be a little bit of a bigger of a problem. So what happens if this damnaloy tefillas mitzvah? What if he had to go to the mikveh? So what he should do is karachel of gemi. He should cover it over with some type of covering, and then be yored with toivel, and then he could go to toivel because it'll protect it. Like if Yosy Omer yored with toivel doctor, just toivel, don't worry about it. Don't purposely scrub it off, but you're allowed to go, and if the water just dissolves it, that's not a problem. So the question is, why in the world would Rabbi Yosy allow that? Zok the Gemara, when we analyzed the machlokes, the Gemara explained in another place the kaimel on the betfila b'zmana mitzvah plea. The machlokes was a tefillah b'zmana mitzvah. Now Rabbi Yosy said you need to toivel on time, but if you mandate, you Tana Kama are mandating that I have to find some type of gemi to cover up this Shem Hashem with. Well, if I'm busy looking for some gemi, I might be late in toiveling, because if I can't find one, I'm going to delay my tefillah until I find that gemi. Therefore, Rabbi Yosy says, since I hold that you need to toivel b'zmana, therefore I'm going to argue and say, forget about covering it up. It's more important to be toivel b'zmana. So we've illustrated here that Rabbi Yosy holds that there's a mitzvah to be toivel at the right time. We just said a moment ago that Rabbi Yosy holds you don't have to toivel at the right time. You can toivel Motzei Yom Kippur. You don't have to toivel on Yom Kippur itself. So that is a steer in Rabbi Yosy. Zok the Gemara, we have a famous saying, Yilav hayoyme kama Yosy iki b'shukah. If it wasn't for that day, if Kabbalah started to be many Yosys. But guess what? Even with hayoyme, even with the Torah, there's also kama Yosys. And there's two Yosys. There's a Yosy who holds tefillah b'zman mitzvah, and there's a different Yosy who holds tefillah b'zman not a mitzvah. So don't think that you can learn Torah and you'll be unique. There's still kama Yosy iki b'shukah. Pligi, the kama tefillah b'zman pligi. Mitzvah pligi. Here, the brisa that we're claiming that Rabbi Yosy holds, tefillah b'zman. Sorry, the brisa that we're claiming that Rabbi Yosy does not hold of tefillah b'zman mitzvah. That's Rabbi Yosy bar Yehuda. The Tanya will show you how Rabbi Yosy bar Yehuda holds that tefillah b'zman is not a mitzvah. It's Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda Omer, Dayel Tefillah Shethei B'Achrein. We had it from Maseches Shabbos. There was a woman who showed up, and she said she had a baby not too long ago, and we don't, and she's in a total matzav of suffix. We don't know what the day of her tefillah is, and we don't know if she's a nida or not, if she's a zavar or not. So because of that, for the next 90 days, she has to, the machlokes, she has to toivel practically every day, because today might be the day that she has a chiyuv tefillah. And Rabbi Yosy said, forget about it. She doesn't have to toivel. Let's wait till the end after all the sveikas are all over, and let her do one tefillah at that point. So that clearly illustrates that you don't need tefillah b'zman the mitzvah. If you don't tefillah b'zman the mitzvah, then every possibility where her chiyuv tefillah might be, if today might be the end of the Shiv Nakim, if today might be the end of her Yoledes period, then she has a toivel. Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda says, since anyway she's not mutter to her husband, so wait till all of the sveikas are done, over and done with, and then she does one tefillah. Clearly, Rabbi Yosy here holds that tefillah b'zmana is not a mitzvah. So who is the Rabbi Yosy with the gemi who holds you don't need a gemi because tefillah b'zmana mitzvah? So Rashi says that's not Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda. Rashi says all the way at the bottom of the big Rashi on the wide lines, Rabbi Yosy the gemi who Rabbi Yosy ben Chalafta. That's the Rabbi Yosy ben Chalafta. There's two Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda and Rabbi Yosy ben Chalafta.
But on serious, but I have a question. You see over here that the reason for the tefillah of the lady is to be looking for her husband. But on Yom Kippur, she's not looking for her husband. Why should she?
No, tefillah b'zman mitzvah is not to be mutter to her husband.
So there's two things: the mitzvah to be settled as mano, and then the reason.
Because even the Balkari, even Tamei Meis, all these people have a mitzvah to be settled as mano.
Right, so the mitzvah. Okay, so there's two things. The mitzvah, even by the ladies, use the mitzvah to be the mano, even though she's not.
Correct. And it's a good time to bring up with Akiva taught us in the Mishnah of Ma Mikveh Metaris at Meim Afa Kodesh Baruch Hu Metaris Yisrael. So Akiva spoke it beautifully. Just like by mikveh, even though you're still going to be tamei, let's say you're a balkari today, but you're also tamei mates. So even if you toivel today for your balkari, you're still not tar. You still have to wait. But al tefillah b'zman and mitzvah, you have to do what you could now. So Akiva says that's how tshuva works as well. Don't say, listen, I can't be perfect, so I'm not going to do anything. No, be matar yourself in every way you could. Do tshuva for wherever you could, and you'll be a work in progress. So don't say I'm not going to do anything because I can't do it all. I think that was Rabbi Fran's message at the last Siyum Shas. I think that's what he said. He had a good phrase.
Don't let perfection get in the way of the good.
Oh, very good. Akiva, you're fully armed. Go ahead. Okay. Zok the kehilla Gemara weiter. Tanur Rabban. So now we're talking about Keri. Haroya Keri b'Yom Kippurim. If someone sees Keri on Yom Kippur, Yored v'Toivel. By the way, I want everybody to notice. That I'm avoiding at all costs making a political connection about seeing Keri, because Keri was seen in the last couple of days without a mask. But I'm not even going to make that connection. Tanur Rabban. Haroya.
So we have now two Rabbi Yosy and two Rabbanim. Is that what we end up with now?
We have Rabbi Yosy and two Rabbanim. So let's do it. We could do an inventory. What we have over here. So Rabbi Yosy holds. Rabbi Yosy holds tefillah b'zmana is lav mitzvah, and therefore you only have to toivel if you're pre ne'ilah, but if you're post ne'ilah, you don't have to toivel. The Rabbanon in the first brisa holds that you could only toivel up until mincha, because the Rabbanon hold that ne'ilah does not have to be daven by day, ne'ilah can be daven by night. And then you have a third Rabbanon who hold that ne'ilah, you don't daven balkari toivel puloi because of a new svara, because tefillah b'zman a mitzvah, and therefore even if you daven ne'ilah, you would still toivel on Yom Kippur al tefillah b'zman a mitzvah. The two Rabbanon do not coincide; they argue with each other. Rashi speaks it out. The two Rabbans argue. Well, only if you hold the tefillas arvis by night, which would be Rabbi Yosy, the first Rabbi Yosy, but it's the same Rabbi Yosy. So we lost that connection. So Tanur Rabban, Haroya Keri b'Yom Kippurim. If someone saw Keri in Yom Kippurim, Yored the toivel, he should go be toivel on Yom Kippur. But to clean away his chatzitzas, he can't do that. You're not allowed to do that on Yom Kippur. So therefore, Erev Yishakshis. After Yom Kippur's over, that's when you should rub off any chatzitza. Frank the Gemara, the Erev might have a hava. It doesn't help to take off your chatzitza after you toifel. The chatzitza has to be removed before you toifel. Every person before Yom Kippur should make sure that he's squeaky clean. He has no chatzitzas on him, so that in the event that he would have to toifel, he would already be clean from any chatzitzas. Tani Tan. Well, we're not talking about the case of Gemi. We're talking about a regular person. Why is that not a chatzitza? I'm not sure how that works. Yeah, I'm not sure how that works. Tani Tana Kameja Abnach. Tana asked the question in front of Abnach, or learned in front of Abnach. Haraya Keri B'Yom Kippurim. If someone sees Keri in Yom Kippur, Avoy Nesav Muchulan Loi. So you see, it's a good sign. Hashem is moich. It's a sign that Hashem is moich of all of theirs. And they say pshat in that is a person who reached such a level of kedusha, so any tum in him escapes because it can't be with him. That's one of the svaris that they say. A person could have reached such a high level of kedusha that any tum from within him leaves. It's a little funny pshat, but that's what the
Gemi, which is a use that is not tight.
So it's permeable, so therefore it maybe would be a chatzitza. Okay. So in fact, the more about Tanya, we learned avonos of Sidurim. They're set up, they're organized. The prosecutor has them in file, ready to prosecute. So tomorrow, no, my Sidurim limochel. It means they're all ready because the prosecutor is going to ask for a dismissal. And why is that? Why is that? So I believe Rashi tells us why. And Rashi tells us, Siman Toifuzeh, I'm on the first widest line of Rashi all the way at the bottom. And of course, Rashi says, of course, it happened by accident. Because there's a pasuk in Navi, I'm not sure where it is, where this pasuk is. Let's look at the base in the psukim. It's in Yeshaya. The pasuk is Yira Zera v'Yarach Yamim. So you see, from Zera, he'll be zoiche to have a riches Yamim. So it's a good sign for him. Zog to Gemara Ba'at. Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel. L'roya Keri B'Yom Kippurim Yida Kol Hashana. To the contrary, he should be nervous all year long. Kol Hashana Kula. And Rashi says, why should you be concerned? Shema Kiblu Tanisai. Maybe they weren't being in Shemayim. They didn't accept this tanis. The his B'Ehu, and they couldn't force him to eat. They couldn't Shemayim make food show up in his mouth. So the Shemayim arranged to give him the breaking of the inui, with what they were able to do easily, and it should be perceived as ke'evid hamoizu kois l'rabbi, the shafach like kitin al panav, like you poured a kois for your Rebbe, and your Rebbe pours it back in your face. So therefore, it's a concern if min hashamayim they stopped you from doing this inui. However, them also loishana. But if after he sweats all year, it turns out being a pretty good year, then muftach loishu ben adam haba. Then it turns around. Then he can be sure that he is a ben adam haba. Why is that? Rashi from if he survived, then muftach loy shemaisim toivim yesh biyadei. It must be that he has a lot of maisim toivim in his hands. Sheheginu olav that protected him, and uben olam habahu. That's a good sign for him. Amar Abnacham b'yitak teda, you should know that it's a good sign. Shekol ha'olam kulei rov. Everybody else had to fast with all the 5 inuyim, and he ended up being satisfied. So Hashem is basically telling him, you don't need to fast so much like everybody else. You can relax it because you're already on the higher madrega. So it's a good sign. We'll stop here so that Shmiel can finish the Maseches. Someone said over a very nice word that the first letter of the Maseches, the Mishnah starts off in the Maseches with the word Shivas, which is a Siyum. And the last Mishnah in the Maseches, I hope it stems, it's supposed to start off with a Lamed, but I don't see where the Lamed is. Oh, no, it ends. The last Mishnah ends with the word Lamed, which spells the word Shal, as in Shal Na'alecha Me'al Raglecha, which is one of the Inuyim is taking off your shoes. But the question is, why is the Inui, why is the Tana expressing the Inui of Ne'ilas HaSandal when there's other Inui? What's up Shal? So he's Masber, Rabbi Rosner was Masber very, very nicely. And he said that there's 4 levels of creation. There's Doimim, like a rock, there's Shemech, like a plant, there's Chai, like an animal, and there's Medaber. Why is the Medaber greater, more powerful than the Chaya, than the Chai? It's because we have a right to use them to take care of our needs. And the greatest symbol of that is footwear. By us wearing leather footwear, we're basically saying that all the Brias are Meshubbat us. We can even kill them and use their skin to wear on our feet. So it gives us a feeling of superiority. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, Shalom Malal Nechem El Reglecha. We have to realize that we might feel superior in the Bria, but to the Rebbeinu Shalom we're bottled. So taking off our shoes is the biggest announcement of Bittul, it's the biggest acknowledgement of Bittul, because we're taking away our superiority of humans. And that's why it's the strongest type of Inui, and that's why Yitanya decided to use the word Shal. That's what he suggested. So let's start Maseches Sukkah. We have a little bit of time. We can probably learn the first Talmud of Sukkah. So Mazel Tov, Baruch Hashem, we finish Yom Kippur, we should Zeiche, the Alter Brachas of Yom Kippur, Alter Kaparas of Yom Kippur, and you know that Geshmaka feeling, what's Yom Kippur, how good it feels? So that's how it feels when we finish the Masechta. Can you guys hear what Shmiel is saying?
No.
Shmiel, can you speak up?
All of a sudden, was in Savannah. The first year he was there, on the Kippur, he doesn't in a shul, and the guy who had the seats from Yuma was wearing shoes. Right, and everyone was always scared to tell him anything, Anyway, so unbelievable, like flipping out. How can a guy wearing shoes have such a kehilla? So he went to speak to the rabbi. He said, "Listen, I can't tell you." Anyways, he said, "I'm gonna go speak to him." So the next year, working about the absolute kehilla, he went over to him and said to the guy, you know that you explained to him what she was of Psicha of Aliya, and he said to him, if you're wearing shoes, you need to know not supposed to be wearing shoes. He says, nobody ever told me. That's it. And from that on, he took off.
Wow. See, somebody didn't know. but a whole year didn't matter. It only mattered for the next time.
Yes.
So the guy says, how come you didn't tell me yesterday? Beautiful.
It should be a simple list for Arnold.
Yeah, it should be a source for his neshama. And he should be a male inspiration for all of us. Now, let's see the Heilige Sukkah. Go ahead. Mazel Tov Shmiel. Shmiel's making a scene today. Everybody's invited. After Shachris, we're going to celebrate. We're going to break our fast. We're going to break our fast as in breakfast. Shmiel's giving a breakfast to break our fast after. That's right. It's also a beautiful fast that we can break. Sukkah. Sukkah she gavoya l'mayla me'ashemam. A sukkah that is more than 20 amas high. So the first question is, there's 2 major mitzvahs that come to our mind whenever we think of sukkah. We think of the mitzvah of sitting in the sukkah, and we think of the mitzvah of arba minim. So the question is, the mitzvah of arba minim was actually mentioned earlier in the Torah than the mitzvah of sukkah. So why doesn't the Maseches of sukkah start with discussing the mitzvah of arba minim? So what?
We all have that.
So there's different suggestions for a teretz. Some say that the mitzvah sukkah starts earlier because you have to start building your sukkah already. Much Yom Kippur, the minhag is to start building your sukkah. But that's a little bit shvech to say, because already in Rosh Hashanah, everybody learning in Yerushalayim is running around looking for arba minim. So the pashut teretz that they say is the mitzvah of sukkah starts immediately by nightfall. We sit in the sukkah, while the mitzvah of arba minim doesn't start until the next morning. Right? There's a famous story with one of the Gedolim who broke the glass in his china cabinet because he had his lulav nesrog there, and he was waiting all night for a lois so that he could grab his lulav nesrog, and he got so excited he forgot to open the glass door before he reached out to it. But the Berditcheva was, yeah, the Berditcheva says a beautiful word. We know that we refer to the Yom Tov of Pesach differently than the Rebbeinu Shalom refers to it. We call it Pesach because we want to remember the chasadim that the Rebbeinu Shalom did to us, which means he spared us. He jumped over the house of the Bnei Yisrael while he was being mashchis, the children of the Mitzrayim and Makkas B'choros. The Rebbeinu Shalom calls it Chag HaMatzos. The Rebbeinu Shalom looks at our mitzvahs that we make matzahs, which symbolizes that we ran out with the Rebbeinu Shalom into the midbar without knowing how we're going to be sustained. We had full b'tochen lech derech achav midbar. So the Rebbeinu Shalom looks at the Yom Tov from his perspective to see how great we are with Amika Amcha Yisrael, and we perceive everything at the Chesed Hashem did to us. Just like Hashem's tefillin says Mika Amcha Yisrael Vayechet Ba'aretz, praising Klal Yisrael, and our tefillin praises the Rebbeinu Shalom. So the Sukkah, the Yom Tov of Sukkah is us thanking the Rebbeinu Shalom for providing shelter for us in the midbar. So that's the part of the Yom Tov that we are acknowledging and thanking the Rebbeinu Shalom. So when we start learning about Sukkah, we start learning about the parts that we want to show the Rebbeinu Shalom that we have Akaras HaTov to him for providing us that shelter in the midbar. So that's what we started with the Sukkah. That's what the Berditchev says. So if you have a Sukkah that's taller than 20 amas, Shula, it's going to be possible. Rabbi Yehuda Machshir. Rabbi Yehuda holds such a Sukkah is kosher. What about V'she'ena Gavoya Asara Tfachim? What if it's not 10 Tfachim high? And of course, Rashi tells us that the Gemara is going to explain the reason for all of these limitations. If it's not 10 Tfachim high, or V'she'ena Shalosh Tefanais, if it doesn't have 3 walls, or V'shechamsa Meruba Mitzilta, if it has more Chama than Seil, Shula, it's possible. On the Shechamta Meruba Mitzilta, Rashi does say something. Rashi says if there's less shade than there is sun, Rashi says Hamuit Batal Baroi. The little amount of shade will be bottled in the right amount of sun. By Rehu Kamisha. We look at it like there's no schach. And if there's no schach, Suk Rashi, there's no sukkah. The Al Shema Schach Kriya Sukkah. The sukkah is referred to the name sukkah because of its schach. And if its schach is bottled, then it's not a sukkah.
Kamisha Eda is referring that there's no shade, or Kamisha Eda that there's no schach. This is an interesting Rashi.
That's very interesting. Well, it's directly referring to Ruber B'tzilta, so it's like there's no sail. But if there's no sail, I guess that translates into there's no schach. Because if there's no, because schach means it creates shade. So it's a good deal. The Kamisha Eino seems to be going on the sail, but Rashi then transfers that over to the schach. If there's no sail, then we'll also produce there's no schach. Very good, very, very interesting. So
one sec. So in reverse, if let's say it's completely tzel, and there is no sun, then it would also be puzzle. There we don't say that the miyud is puzzle.
Why is that?
You put up if there's no sun whatsoever, you don't let a sun in. If I put,
you're allowed a pure shade.
Complete shade.
I think you're allowed to. I think you're allowed to be completely shaded. You don't have to have light spots. You don't have to have light spots.
You got to see stars, right? You got to be able to see stars through the schach. Something.
Yeah. It can't be that thick that you can't see stars through it. That's true. But I don't know if you need chama.
I'm just wanted to know if there we also say if it's batal b'roiv, the way it is.
I remember Arab Sukkot, he lived across the street from me. One year when bananas is because they put so much schach that he felt the rain wouldn't even come.
Okay, so now we know we have what to look out for because we're learning Maseches Sukkah. We'll learn all these halachas. There's nothing with Tanhasim. So that shouldn't be too thick. We have this limitation of 20 amas in another Masech, in Erevin that we learned. And we know what a mavui is. A mavui is look at it as a long corridor that you enter it from Rosh Hashanah. The corridor has 3 walls, but there's no wall that separates between the corridor and the Rosh Hashanah. Now, those 3 walls all have doors in them that lead to private property. So the halacha is, since that mavui is an area that's shared by all the people who have access to that mavui, and many people go through that mavui to get into the Rosh Hashanah, we need to make an erev that joins everybody together in that mavui, so that mavui should be considered Rosh Hashanah. And then everybody from that area is allowed to carry in there. However, when you're walking from the Mobley to Rosh Hashanah or vice versa, there needs to be a sign that tells us, that you're transferring from a Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. So that's what a Mobley is. So it says a Mobley should gavoy me'eshemama. If the sign that you have on the Mobley is higher than 20 amas, you should bring it down. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ein tzarich. Even if it's more than 20 amas, you don't have to adjust it. So frank the Gemara, ma'ishna gabe sukkah the tani psula. By a sukkah, it says if it's taller than 20 amas, it's possible. Why couldn't the Mishnah be a little bit more gentle and just say, like by Mavu, ma'ishna gabe mavi the katani takanta? The Mishnah could have said, if it's too big, so bring it down. Why declare it possible? Yet by Mavui, the Mishnah was much more gentle. The Mishnah didn't say possible. The Mishnah just said you could fix it by lowering it. Zok the Gemara, Sukkah Dairaisa, Sukkah, which is a mitzvah Dairaisa, and since it's a mitzvah Dairaisa, when was it established that if it's 20 amas high, it's possible? Already, as soon as the Rebbeinu Shem gave the mitzvah. All the Mishnah here is doing is reporting what the Torah has already told us years before. So therefore, Tani Psula, because we're not creating the halacha here in the Mishnah, we're just relating the halacha that was already established when the Kadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah. But Mavu de Rabbanan, Mavi, which is the Rabbanan, where is the Rabbanan telling us the rule? Where are the rules being written? They're being written right here in the Mishnah. So Tani Takanta. That's why when the Mishnah talks about Mavi, and the Mishnah is first introducing this halacha that 20 is too high, it uses the word Yemayit because we're not reporting a halacha, we're actually developing the halacha right here live on site. The boy Sema.
That was already by the answer to the kehilla, no?
The Mishnah is relating the setting up of the halachas. So Videi Yosema, or there could be another answer. B'deraisa nami takanta. Maybe even by deraisa, like by sukkah, it would be able to say you lower it. But there's another problem here. In our Mishnah, it lists 3 or 4 different problems. If it would have to list the solution to each one of the 3 different problems, it would get to be a very long, drawn-out Mishnah. Miyusukah did not, Shmiel say, since there's a lot of different issues that are being discussed in our Mishnah, to simplify things, it said psula. But Tani psula. But Mavi did not, the Shmiel say, in the Mishnah in Eruvin, it happens to only be talking about that one condition, if it's too high. So since it's only talking about that one condition, Tani Takanta, all the Mishnah needed to say was how to fix it by lowering the height.
When is
you lower it, you raise it, you move it, it would be too complicated.
when is the Mishnah suggesting that we fix it? Is this beforehand, or is it already on Sukkos?
Well, here our Mishnah is psula. You have to fix it beforehand because it's
You
possible.
can't fix it on Yontiv, right? Can't come in and go realize, oh boy, it's too high.
Well, you want to know if you would be allowed to fix it on Yom Tov?
Yes. When is the Mishnah telling me?
The Mishnah is not telling you to fix it. The Mishnah is telling you that it's possible.
You can see better by Mavli. You can't fix the Mavli on Shabbos. But it says.
I mean, Akiva is trying to tell you that since you can't fix it, that's why you use a lashon of psula. So if Victor's answering, if that was a teretz, then by Mavu also you can't start fixing the Erev on Shabbos. So Akiva's question went over my head and you caught it, and then your teretz went over my head and Akiva caught it. So now we're good. I am the monkey in the middle. Okay, at least the system works. Oh, we have to push this closer. So how do you know? We'll just learn 2 more lines. How do you know that you cannot have a sukkah that's taller than 20 amas? It says, the purpose of sukkah is that we should know we're sitting in a sukkah to remember that a Kodesh Baruch Hu protected us with sukkahs. So at Esrim Amma, if you're in a sukkah that's less than 20 amas, he knows that he's in the sukkah. If the sukkah is taller than 20 amas, a person doesn't even know he's in a sukkah because he can't see the schach. You cannot see schach when it's so high. A person sees schach if it's under 20 amas. If it's over 20 amas, he doesn't see schach. Seeing walls is not seeing a sukkah. You gotta see the schach. And with that, we'll stop here. Mazel tov, everybody. I'm very excited. We're going to break our fast of Yuma. And thank you, Shmiel. for sponsoring a beautiful Siyum, and the neshama of Binyomin Yehuda Pesach ben Aliya, not Yitzchak, should have an Aliya.
Go ahead.
Yosy, if you get a